Hi there. In an earlier video, I showed you how to make these cards. And these are a little, they're not difficult, but they're a little more entailed because you do have some die cutting and stuff. What if you don't have all of those dies? What if you don't have all of that to make those dies? I'll show you a really simple way to make it without having to have these tree dies. Let's start. So I start with my 5x7 card base, and I'm going to use these background papers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mat and layer this on top of there, and then I'm going to cut my aperture just like I did before. Now, since I have 3 layers of cardstock and I want my aperture to line up perfectly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top layer of cardstock and I'm going to take just a little bit of glue and just put like tiny little dot of glue in each corner. Okay? That way it'll hold it, but I can still get it apart after it's cut so that I can really glue it. And I'm going to do the same thing with this piece onto the card base. Well, let's get the glue going. Two is actually probably enough. Let me center that up. Okay. Now, again, I've got my 2 nesting dies, and I'm going to make a frame out of the bigger one, or the 2, but I want to cut my aperture just with the small one. So again, line it up, put your tape on, and tape to the inside. So your die and you're taping onto the piece of cardstock that you're going to cut away. That way, if it does stick and rip the cardstock, you're ripping the stuff that you're not going to use anyway. Now, if I open this up and cut it, it'll actually cut through all 3 layers of cardstock. So let me go put that through my die cutting machine. I'll be right back. Okay, so I ran that through the die cutting machine. If you turn it over, you can see that it actually cut through all 3 layers of that cardstock. Now, this is not super heavy cardstock. These are card bases that I just bought, 5x7 card bases that I bought on Amazon. So they're, I don't know, they're probably maybe 85-pound cardstock. Again, you just peel that tape back nice and gentle. Get the corner peeled up. Peel it back. You can see I still have tape on or glue on my finger from when I was gluing some intricate die cuts. Now see, that ripped, but that's okay. I don't really care because I'm not going to use that piece of paper for anything. Well, I would have saved it and used it, but that's okay. But see, they just come right apart. And now I've got pattern cardstock, the red, and if I can get it apart, there it goes. I've also got the white. I'll go ahead and save those in case I decide to use them. But see, you got a perfect aperture, but it still comes apart, so you can then glue it, and you don't have to worry about the glue squishing out all over your machine, and you can get a nice glue right around that edge. Now, the next thing I want to do is I need to cut that red aperture. So, take a piece of red. Let's put the large oval nesting die in. Put the next size down in there. Tape that on. And again, I'm going to tape over both pieces, both dies this time, because I do not want those dies to move at all. Because I want that, I've got that perfectly measured. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run this through the die cutting machine. I'll be right back. Okay. Again, take that tape, loosen it, and then if you just peel it back like that, roll it back, you're far less likely to rip it than if you just kind of grab it. So grab the corner, and just roll it back. And it'll come pretty much right off of there. Oops, tape's stuck on me. Okay, and now I've got my frame. So now I can glue all this together. So let's start by kind of carefully peeling these things away. If it rips, see how this one ripped? Not a big deal because you're gonna glue it back on and cover it up anyway. But if you just kind of tease it off of there very carefully, you can usually get it off without ripping. But if it doesn't, now I'm sure I'm not perfect and I didn't get it right in the middle. So make sure, and this paper has a pattern, so make sure that you remember which way you had it. Like these two pieces go this way onto there, because I'll show you. Like if I try to put it on the back way, the other way, when the aperture lines up, it's not lined up. So obviously it's not right in the middle. So start with this piece. Let's glue that onto the red. And you just want to try and get a nice light coat, and you want to make sure and get right around that aperture. Now you can glue it on before you cut, but then if you put the wet glue on, which I like wet glue just because it gives me a little bit of wiggle time, because I'm not, no, see that? I did it wrong. Because I'm not good at getting it perfect the first time. Like if I use a tape pen, when I push it down, I almost never get it centered, and then I'm unhappy because it's not even. So if I use a wet glue, it works better. But if you use a wet glue before you run it through your die cutting machine, then you have to make sure you leave it to dry completely. And see, I make sure I get that lined up in the right, so it's on that side. But make sure it's dry completely before you put it in your die cutting machine, or the glue could squish out inside the die cutting machine and make a mess and possibly ruin it. So again, line that up carefully. Get that aperture right, and then you know your mats and layers should be perfect. That looks good. Okay. Now let's put our little frame on. Again, just a thin layer of glue around. And I'm going to show you two ways of putting your inside tree in the middle. One easy but more expensive way, and one not hard but cheaper way, but it does require. So you have that. Now, I actually made another one so that I can show you two different ways, but I didn't glue this one up, so let me go ahead and glue it on there. Get that on there. Okay. Now, the first way that's super easy, and looks great, but it does require some cost. So I bought these. I actually bought these on clearance at, I think it was Michael's or Hobby Lobby, like after Christmas. They had them on clearance sale for like $1 a piece, which is pretty expensive if you're making a lot of cards, but if you're going to make, you know, a couple of special ones, then it's not so bad. But these do look really nice in this aperture, and it's super easy. So I've had them for a while, so the little stickies are probably pretty old, but you just peel that off. decide where you want it and stick it on. Now, I like to put a little bit of wet glue on that foam because I don't think it holds as well as it should. So you can just kind of line that up and then hold on to it and open it up. See, it looks pretty. It looks off. It actually, I really like the way it looks. Could have done some inking or something in the back of that so it's not quite so stark, but it's not bad. Then the other thing I like to do, now it comes with all of these other things. I'm not so sure I really want to put any of those on. You can, but I found these and I thought this would look really nice with the presents on it. So let's open that up. I'll save those other ones for something else. But if I pull this out of there, I have all these different options. Let me get this one out of the way. So I thought some presents down here would look nice. So again, I'm going to put some wet glue on because I don't trust that foam. So we're going to put that maybe there. Maybe this one with the little puppy on there. And just kind of have some fun with it. On this side. And you can put them so that they sort of overlap the aperture. I think that looks nice. I think I need one more in here. Do you want the long one? No, not that one. Maybe this one. No, I think the tall one. Let's peel that off of there. Oops. It's got a little tag on it too. So let me get the little tag stuck down. And that on there. There. I kind of like that. Now, again, that's very fast and easy, but you do have the expense of the little dimensional stickers, which if you get them on clearance, it's not bad. But if you don't, they're, where are they? They said they were like $2.99 a piece, which is really expensive. So kind of makes for expensive cards. But if you can buy them on clearance or something similar to that, that works really well. But let me show you one other nice, easy way. If you've got a stamp, like I have a Christmas tree stamp here, and I just have a piece of plain card, and I want it to line up in the aperture, but that's going to be a little bit tough, but I'm gonna do my best. So let's peel that stamp off there, and we're going to line this up about there, and I want that stamp to go right about there. Now this is a Christmas tree stamp that came with, I think it came with the Crafter's Companion tree collage stamp. So I just ink that up, and I personally like the stamping platform. This is the Tim Holtz stamping platform because I rarely get my stamp to look good the first time. I don't know. And this gives me the chance to do it and get it. If I don't get it perfect the first time, well, it looks pretty good. Oh, now that I said that, it looks pretty good. So, but if I didn't get that perfect the first time, I could go back in there and stamp it again, and it would be in exactly the right spot. Now, I also have the Crafter's Companion stamping platform, and it works good too. I honestly just kind of like this one for smaller stamps. So now that that's done, stamped, you just want to kind of color it. So let me grab some ink pens, and I use the alcohol proof ink, so I'm going to use my alcohol markers. Okay. I personally like the tri-blends. Let me grab a piece of paper to put underneath, because if you've ever used alcohol markers, you know you gotta have a sheet of paper under. And we'll just kind of color this up real quick. I'll go fast. And just try to stay in the lines. And then we're going to do some of the balls in gold. And it's just, I'm just randomly choosing some. We're going to do the rest of the balls in the red. It doesn't matter, you can decorate it however you want, and this looks good too, but it keeps you from having to purchase those dimensional stickers. And the stamps are pretty cheap. This one, like I said, came from Crafter's Companion, but you can get Christmas tree stamps from pretty much anywhere. Oh, that's a little bright. I'll give it some. I won't spend too much time coloring. It's a little bit on the bright side, but well, it's going with a little bit of dark in here, just kind of here and there. And I just kind of follow the lines that the person that created, the artist that created the stamp put in there for texture. Just put a little bit of darker shades on those lines. And you can take more time and make this look better if you want, but I'm just trying to get it. I do like the brush pens for larger areas. You can get into those little small areas by being careful with the tip, but that brush nib covers a lot of area quickly when you got a large image. Try not to go too far out of the lines here. Go back to the medium shade. And if I was taking my time, I would actually use the dark shade as well and do all three just to get some really good highlights in there, but I don't want to spend all this time to do it really the right way, but you'll get the idea. And you can do what you want. And I just kind of put a little bit of squiggles here and there to give it a little bit of texture, because that's really all you're looking for. Is it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, this is not going to hang on the wall for art. It's a Christmas card. So you just want to give it a little bit of variation in color to make it look like it's not so flat. It just makes it look better than if it's just a solid flat color. I mean, if you want to just color it in with a solid flat color, it's fine. It's all in how much effort you want to put in. I mean, obviously it takes a lot more time to do it this way. You could color it in with a solid marker, or honestly, you could even leave it uncolored if you wanted, or colored pencils work. I guess I could have used my colored pencils. You can watercolor if you have watercolors. If you do watercolor, make sure you use a watercolor card and a waterproof ink pad. But I grabbed my alcohol proof because I was going to use my tri-blends. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this plain piece of paper and glue to the inside of the card base. Now I could have stamped directly onto the inside of the card base, but I don't do that. And the reason I don't do that is because I'm not always the best at lining up stamps. And so when I don't want to ruin the card base that I just put together by stamping in the wrong place. So that's good enough. So now this is going to go inside there, and you can see it's just a little bit smaller, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. But if I say, yeah, actually that's not bad. So that's pretty good. So because this looks terrible, well, it doesn't look terrible. I don't care for it. Just the white on the white. I want to actually put almost like a little frame. Now I could do that with paper. I could mat another, like a green or a red paper underneath. But I'm going to show you a little bit of a cheating way. That's one, cheaper, and it also, the lighter your card, at least here in the States, in the US, the more weight you have on your card, the more it costs to post. So to mail. So to keep the postage down, you want to try and keep the weight of the card down, so you don't have to pay the extra ounce stamp or more. So if I want to do that without, I could have just stamped on the inside of the card, and that probably would have been easier. But another way to do that is to just take, I've got my water reactive ink pad in the Grasshopper, which is the medium green. I think that's the color I want. Yeah. And basically you just want to give it a little bit of an edge. Now you could do this with a metallic marker or any kind of a pen. You don't have to use an ink pad, but I just kind of like to do the ink pad because I think it gives it a nice little frame, kind of frames the picture. And it's cheap and easy, and if you have ink pads, then you don't have to get anything else. You don't have to, and it's fairly simple to do. Just go all the way around with just a little bit of ink. Get that last side. Oh, I should have got my glass mat out. It would have been a lot easier than just this paper. The paper underneath is soaking up way too much ink. It doesn't really let me blend too well onto the side, but I'm almost done and it'll be fine. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, I keep my little sponge applicators with the ink pad with just a little Velcro dot on the back, and then that way it keeps it right with it, and I'm all ready to use it. Okay, let me set this to one side. Bring my card base back in here. Now, looks pretty. You open it up, and you've got a little bit of a frame, so it doesn't look so stark on there. And we'll just glue that on. And again, I like my wet glue because I'm not very good at getting it in exactly the right spot the first time. So this gives me some time to wiggle it around, and there we go. And we're all done. So again, a fairly simple, cheap, easy way to do it. If you have some pretty paper, And all I needed was that one nesting die and a stamp.